Coaches, your cheer music is one of the most important parts of your routine. You know it, and we know it. How important is it? And how important is it to pick the right producer? Well, watch this episode because I've got one of the most popular up-and-coming music producers in our industry. So with me today, I've got my good friend, Alex LaGrossa. He owns the music producing company, Twisted Cutz. And we've known each other for about 10 years now, and he has just catapulted to the top of our industry. We've got a good conversation coming. So Alex, welcome, buddy.
Chad, it's great to see you, and I'm honored to be here with the Cheer Coaching Academy. Congratulations on the launch, and now I'm excited to see all the classes and all the courses, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, buddy. So tell me a little bit about your background.
So I started cheering back in my sophomore year of high school, back in I think it was like 2002. I graduated Cherry Hill East in 2004, Cherry Hill High School East in New Jersey, and right out of high school, I started working at a local tumbling and gymnastics gym called TNT Elite. And it wasn't necessarily we had all-star for a little bit, but it was more so for all the local teams, the high schools, the rec teams, to come and use our facility for practice and for tumbling. And part of the package for a team to come to TNT was you pay and you get an hour of practice space, an hour of tumbling, and you get custom routine music. So a pretty solid deal, based on today's standards for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a guy there, a close friend of mine. His name was Mike O'Neill, and he was the one that introduced me, and he was the music guy for the gym. And he introduced me to programs such as Acid Sony Pro or Sony Acid Pro, Cool Edit Pro, Sony SoundForge. And he had a hard drive of all the old school like sound banks that everyone knew from the early days of cheerleading. So all the original sound effects, the movie quotes, the song clips, everything. And he basically just was letting me use the computer, and I would stay overnight at the gym and just mess around with it. And he just taught me kind of how the basic fundamentals of just using these programs and a basic understanding of cheer music. And at one point in time, probably a few years later, Mike and TNT parted ways, but it was mid-season, and the teams needed music. So the owner, Todd, came to me and was like, "Hey, you know how to use these programs, don't you?" And I'm like, "Kind of. I'm fairly new at this. There's a lot I don't know." And he was like, "Well, can you make the music for these teams? Like, we need to give it to them." And I was like, "I'll do my best." And that's literally the start of it all. So I remember the first program I did music for was a local rec team, Marlton Chiefs. And I just started putting things together, and I started doing a lot of the mixes for just the teams at TNT. But then, word spread in the local area, and people would reach out to me to do their music, even if they weren't a client at TNT. And I just kind of got a good foothold in the New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York, the tri-state area. I started doing a lot of the local high schools and the recs and things like that. So that's how it all started.
That sounds very familiar about how my story started too. You mentioned those programs, the Acid Pro and Cool Edit Pro and SoundForge. Like that all comes screaming back to me.
Oh yeah, it's it's funny. I look back because after all the years, we get training, we learn more about music production and stuff, and it's like I was taught so much of the wrong stuff.
Oh, for
how
sure.
to either use the program or how to sample songs, but we made it work.
Yep.
And over time, obviously, there was a big push to create more and more high audio quality mixes, not just splicing together
Mm-hmm.
songs that you might find off the internet or LimeWire or BearShare and all that stuff.
Oh, Napster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Back in the day, just trying to figure out how to get whatever clips possible to use. There was, trying to find all the acapellas. There was certain groups that you would pay like a month to be able to rip acapellas offline so you can mash them up in your cheer mix and get the ludicrous vocal that everyone has, or I don't know, the Trina vocal that everyone has. So just funny times, looking back on the start and the evolution. And I hopped in kind of later on in the game. Like it was already kind of, the ball was already rolling because you already had Bring It On came out, and you had Mark Bryan
Yep.
doing all the cheer mixes and the evolution, and then you had chat and stuff like that to take it to the next level. So I hopped in kind of mid game.
Yeah, Mark Brown was definitely the godfather of cheer music.
Yes, yes, yes. Shout out to Mark Bryan. I used to do a lot or order a lot from the cheer music store.
Oh, I think we all did for sure.
Everybody did. I mean, it's all the fundamentals. I still use a lot of this stuff today. But super nice guy, and
He
I
was,
appreciate
yeah,
everything
he
he's
is.
done for this industry.
Yep, he is. He's wonderful. He was always there to talk to a fellow producer and help out, give insight. So he's one of the good ones.
Absolutely, 100%.
So when did Twisted Cutz become a thing? So did you do music just out of the gym, or is that when it's kind of started building your business?
All right, so Twisted Cutz was formed because once I became like the music guy at TNT, we were also running a company called, I believe it was called ECC. It was a competition company,
Okay.
and we had our first inaugural competition was at Rutgers University in Camden. So there's if anyone's familiar with New Jersey, there's the Rutgers, New Brunswick, which is the main campus, and then there's one in Camden as well. And it was the Rumble at Rutgers. And my buddy at the time, the director at TNT, Mike Marano, he was like, we're going to make a program. We need to advertise your music company. And there was no name. Like, we didn't have a name or anything like that. And I remember we were sitting there in the office, and just like, it was like 5 minutes of kind of silence. And all of a sudden Mike goes, "What about Twisted Cutz?" And I was like, "Done. That works. Cool." And that was around 2008-ish, I think. So that's kind of when it was like the name was born. I remember that we took he made a logo of, there's a band, okay, there's a pop punk band called MXPX, and they have a logo of like this like kind of punk rock face, and he just like photoshopped some headphones on it and it put Twisted Cutz underneath it, and that's how it started. And it became an official company, I think, in 2010, and then an LLC in 2013. So 2013 is when I went full time into Twisted Cutz and into music.
That's cool. So when you start a business, there's some gym owners out there, and I want to touch on the entrepreneur part of it first before we get into the actual cheer music part.
Yeah.
So when you start a business, did you have any knowledge about how you were starting it, like what the steps were and how to market, branding wasn't really a thing, or it wasn't the keyword that it is today. Did you have any clue about what you were doing, or was it just more of, I just got to get a name and do this full time?
Well, looking back on it, so basically to kind of take one step back, Twisted Cutz just continued to grow.
Yeah.
And I was doing at that time, after around 2018 or 2008, and on, I started to become the director at TNT, so the tumbling director. So I was in charge. I was head coach and tumbling director. So it was like full time at the gym, running that stuff, running summer camps and everything. And then music just continued to grow. I got linked up. I have a friend, Shelby Smith. She used to coach Cherry Hill High School West. And one day she was like, "Hey, I got a choreographer that needs a new music guy. His name is Ben Lear. Reach out to him and, just offer what you can do and things like that." And once that happened, Ben and I have had a great relationship ever since. And he did get me into the all-star market. So before, it was really just high school rec. I was working with a little bit with what's now Spirit Brands. It was Cheer Tech back in the day. And I was doing like their summer choreography music. So that was like my first initial foot in the door with All Star. But Ben kind of just like catapulted me into it. So right around 2012, 2013, I came to a realization that it was very difficult to do both jobs at a high level. So I was missing days of coaching. People had to cover for me because I had to keep up with the music schedule. And then the music schedule was being cut short, and I had to rush things because I had to get back to TNT. I was leaving coaching at 10 p.m., drinking a massive cup of coffee at 10:30, 11, and then doing music till 4, waking up at 8, doing music again, going to the gym at 12, 1, and doing it over and over again. So I just knew I had to make a choice. And I thought, I had a lot more interest, and I thought there was more potential to grow with the music side. And I know I grew up very heavily in the music, so it was something that caught my attention. But when I took that jump in 2013, I would say, and I don't know if maybe every other business owner feels the same way. Um, I thought I had an idea, but you learn really quickly that there's a ton to learn. And everything so far when it comes to just communication, branding, scheduling, facilitating,
Hmm.
that was just learned along the way, and especially back in 2013, vocals weren't as prevalent as they were today. So like building a team and keeping a team together, it has become more than just me as a producer taking songs and mixing it together. There's a lot more involved with it now. But no, I mean, I I can't even count the amount of mistakes and learning experiences I've had especially since 2013.
Yeah, you mentioned, I'll back up a little bit. You mentioned about how you couldn't, you had too many things going on and you couldn't do them all. I've got a business coach who works with me, and he tells me all the time. He's like, if you're a man that chases two rabbits, you catch none.
Fair. I like that quote.
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna
it's
steal
like, yeah,
that.
for sure. And it's like, focus on what you're good at and build that up. And then if you
Yeah.
want to branch out and try something else, you can. But focus on the one thing, and focus on the one thing that you want to build. And, a lot of gym owners and coaches, cheerleading is a full-time job for very few. So
Yes.
when they have a day job and they come, to the gym at night, it's hard to have that mindset. Um, Especially in even gym owners, like they have to pay bills, and the first few years gyms don't turn a profit.
Yeah. No, 100 and even I mean, for years, it was basically breaking even for Twisted Cutz as well.
Yeah.
Especially as, things evolved and you had to get more customization. And then you had the whole thing around 2015 or 2016 with shifting over from, making sure that your mixes are fully copyright legal. Like, that was a whole period of kind of unknown and testing things out. And I remember like when I first started doing full original mixes, I just kind of threw a price out that I thought was right. But, after a couple of years, you realize like, wow, I was kind of way off with those estimates. And there was plenty of times in those early years where I would end up paying for the mix, like in the sense where the client would pay a certain amount and I would spend way more to produce that mix than the client even paid me. So it wasn't like that there was a small profit margin, it was literally negative profit margin. And like that was just like one example of just learning along the way, and trying to figure things out. But no, it's yeah, just live and learn.
I think that's a very valuable piece of information that coaches and gym owners and even parents don't understand. Is once the whole copyright issue happened and the music industry changed, prices went up, and it wasn't because us producers were trying to take advantage. It was literally the cost of producing a mix went from $1.29 a song on iTunes to, you know, 200-300 bucks a song. And that's being generous.
Yeah, no, and that was again, that was an interesting time just to navigate through. And we had different people in the industry helping and leading the way and stuff like that. But it took a few years to kind of get a foothold
Mhm.
of that whole situation, and especially when it comes to cost, because you're right. If we were using the highest quality that we can use beforehand, which was typically iTunes, it was about $1 something a song.
Right.
So you do 7, 8. I use a ton of songs in my mixes, because I mash everything up. So some people only use like 4 or 5. I was using probably like 10,
Mm-hmm.
15. So, but even then, that's how much you're paying for the song content. Now, especially when you not only when you move away from iTunes do you lose obviously the cost associated with it, and the like the recognizable songs and stuff like that. When you go to a music catalog, so basically what the shift was, as we had to go start licensing from these things called music catalogs that are designed to help people license music a little bit easier. It's typically for like radio and commercials
Mm-hmm.
and TV shows, movies, and stuff like that. So they have massive catalogs, but what works for cheer is a very small portion of that catalog. So now you have to do 2 catalogs, 3 catalogs, just to have enough to last an entire season. So now you're paying 3, 4 catalogs per mix for these songs, compared to, okay, I'm just going to spend $7 to $15 for this mix. So yeah, the cost just associated just obviously took a jump, and it was very difficult to, it was a lot of sticker shock to the clients, and it was very difficult at first to kind of, convey it to them. But I think we did a nice job back in the day, though, because I remember the summer before it all happened was when we got word that we should stop using a company called Sony Entertainment. Any music from Sony Entertainment, stay away from. And it was like July. So I had to reach out to my clients, reach out to choreographers, and be like, hey, everything that we planned on already and that you choreographed for, we can't use. And they were like, that is a difficult pill to swallow. We don't get it. No one else is doing it. And it's like, listen, we're trying our best to, navigate through these waters. The next year was when USA Cheer and everybody had to shift real
Mm-hmm.
quick. And then a lot of our clients came back and were like, okay, we understand and we trust everything moving forward. You guys have a complete trust because you were ahead of the curve and you kind of understood where everything was going. So
Yeah, that I'd actually forgotten about that whole summer of no Sony. And what people don't understand is that's a big chunk of popular songs, like Britney and like Whitney Houston, like all of those were off limits to us.
Yeah, no, and they had like the one thing that for the viewers who aren't familiar with it, you have the major labels, but then they also have sub labels. So you'd have Sony Entertainment, and then you have all these different labels underneath it. So when we're searching for content to use, it might not say Sony, but it might say BMG, and it's like, wait, hold up, we have to see if they're owned by Sony.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a long list, and a lot of songs were evaporated from that summer from being able to be used.
Yeah, it's to put it where coaches can understand. It's let's say Sony was varsity,
Mm-hmm.
and they have all these other event companies that you have to look and see if it's a varsity company or not. So that's that's kind of how we can relate it to that. Yeah, it was a tough time. Like it was challenging. It was asking for a lot of patience and a lot of trust from the coaches. To go back on that a little bit more, like we talk about prices going up, you mentioned the catalogs, and that was only a part of it, because then we started doing fully original. And we didn't use catalogs for that, but the prices jumped up more because we were paying professionals to actually produce new songs just for these teams. So we had production of the instrumental tracks. Then we had vocalists who sang on them. And if they didn't do it, we had to hire a writer. So we had 3 different costs that we had to come up with. And it just kind of got laid on the customer, which that's business. I mean, that's, we see that today in the economy. Like prices are going up, the cost of eggs go up. So Kroger and all them have to put, higher prices on their eggs.
Yeah.
So that was a challenging time. And we didn't, I think we tried, but a lot of coaches still don't understand why that happened. If you are interested, there is a video on my YouTube channel that you can see just a few videos down where I try to explain why you can't use popular songs anymore. So go check that out. It's hopefully you can understand it. I have a hard time understanding it sometimes. I had to have a good friend of ours explain it to me. And it was, so it's, you know, it has a lot to do with legality, rights, who wrote it, who sings it. And it's just, it's a mess, and lawsuits. So it's a good little story.
Yeah, no, if anyone doesn't know that Sony Entertainment sued a lot of the industry.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was a choice to just shift this way. Our lives would have been way easier if we never had to make this shift. Now, a lot of good has come out of it, but you know, it was a difficult time, and it's still like every single year I have to go through and see if I can find a new catalog, because we go through these songs real quickly. So if anyone, and you know, that's kind of touches base on a whole totally different topic. That totally, not only would it be easier, and I'd have a lot more fun being able to use songs from the radio. It is a kind of
And more profitable, by the way.
yeah, no, we would have been able to not jump so drastically with prices. And you know, I think now at this point in time, like we kind of it was a nice big jump, obviously, but I think over time we found out ways to kind of like bring it back down a little bit in certain areas. Like, not only did we have to shift over for copyright purposes and for legality purposes, but a demand for more customization has continued to grow. So, you know, I now have packages where it's low customization for a much cheaper price. But if people who want that high level of customization, there are costs associated with it that are just part of making music. Going back to what you said, like you have to have someone making instrumentals, you have to have somebody writing these songs, you have to have somebody recording these songs, someone doing post production on these songs, and vocals and everything like that. A lot of hands are in a full original mix. And if that's something that you guys like, as a coach, you know, if you guys find the value in that full original mix, it's there. It's a great option. But if, you know, if you're a younger, more novice team or a Pop Warner team, we've gotten to the point where we've found out ways to create mixes that are much more affordable, and just a little bit more simple from a custom and creative standpoint.
I didn't even touch on, I mean, and I forgot to mention the engineer who has to do post on the instrumentals and the vocals before we even get it. So you're right. There's a lot more steps to the process that, and these are professionals. Like this isn't, you know, people that just do it for free. Like these are trained professionals in their field that we would get to help with these songs.
Yeah, and you know, if you want the top quality, it does come with a price.
Yeah.
So it's just what it really comes down to. But yeah, I mean, it's I think there's enough, I guess you can say, diversity in sound and options within the industry, so that if you need a more budget friendly option, they're there. Like I even offer pre-made mixes as well, you know, which is just a quick, easy, still high energetic, still can bring a nice pop to your performance. But we have different steps that go up if you want, you know, the next step up with customization, if you want all these vocalists, if you want us to be able to have a mix that's completely original to you, that can be streamed on Flow Cheer and Varsity TV and have a lyric video, that's an option as well. But every single step of the way, it's just more hands, more time, more costs, which
Yeah.
is why the price just increases as we go up the ladder.
So let's talk about the role in cheer music, and if they're going to pay the costs, if they're going to ask their parents for more money, why is it important to have a top tier mix? Maybe not even a fully original mix, but high quality mix, whether it's a pre-made, semi-original or fully original?
Yeah, I think, just to kind of figure out where to take this convo, like what the importance of cheer music is. And everybody has, I think the best people to ask is definitely the coaches,
Mhm.
because they're the ones experiencing it with the teams, being there when they first hear the mix, seeing how they react at practice, at competition. But I mean, there's so many different, there's a few different things that make it important. And it's kind of similar to like a movie soundtrack, I always say, where, and if anyone's watching that's not familiar with the process with scoring like, so going back to gymnastics, dance, and like other performances with music, say like figure skating, maybe not, I don't know much about figure skating, but the music is cut first, and then the choreography to those performances comes second. In cheerleading, it's typically opposite. There are times where you have the music first and the choreography second, but 99.9% of the time, especially with the custom mixes, we get the routine and we have to figure out how to structure and make that mix um, highlight that routine as best as possible. So it really is just like a movie soundtrack. You're looking at a visual and you're scoring a sound to it, and you're trying to make that visual come to life, for let it be, emotionally and or energetic and things like that. So, a movie, the soundtrack is one of the most important parts to it. That really dictates how you're going to feel about every single scene. And that's kind of the same way with cheer music, and especially when you get to a higher level of cheer music and customization, especially with Twisted Cutz, we focus on every single section is a different scene of your movie that year. And what do we need to do to not only make sure that your talent and your choreography is on display as best as possible, but, so that's the first thing, making sure that everything is highlighted and it really just make everything stand out as much as possible. Every little detail, every little stunt that hit, every jump, every motion, things like that. But the next thing, it's like I really do think, it dictates the energy that these athletes are going to then execute on the floor. So if the kids get their music and they're like, wow, this music just makes this encapsulates our theme or our team spirit, and it just gets me so hyped up to go out there and hit as hard as possible, and just brings the confidence into these athletes. That's the next thing. So it's like there's a few different things that have to happen where it's so important. So not only, you spend so much time on your skills, you spend time and money on the choreography, the music should complement that. So that's the first thing that's important. And then making sure that when your kids go out there, they are pumped for that music button to press play, and it's just they want to listen to it over and over again and bring that confidence. And I guess the third thing that I do think is important, that is more on like the business side of things. So we're talking about the performance side right now. And I've kind of had conversations with this with coaches and gym owners as well. Especially with All Star, when your teams hit the floor, that's your biggest form of advertisement. And you want, just like you have a car commercial, they spend a lot of money on making sure the visual is great, the message is great, but the music to that commercial has to match as well, to make sure that you have the entire package put together. So if you have music that just, like, if someone's watching in the crowd and say, I'm from New Jersey, there's a lot of gyms saturated, it's a small state. Say you have a family or a mom or a kid who like their program, but they're unsure if they want to stay or not. And then another program comes up and they're at their competition, and they don't know why they feel this way, but they're just in awe after the performance. Everything hit on all cylinders. The talent hit, the choreography hit, the uniforms were spectacular. The theme was awesome. And then the crescendo is the music. Just you didn't notice any blemishes in the music. It was just like everything complemented itself. So when you are putting your advertisement on display for everyone else, music plays a part. That you have 3 or 4 things up there on that stage, and music is one of them. So it's very important.
It is, the movie analogy is perfect because when music is used in film, it's there to enhance emotion.
Exactly.
And that's what all art is there to evoke emotion. And a recent example of that is Avengers Endgame. When, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it,
I haven't.
seriously,
I should get on that.
you haven't.
I haven't seen. I think the only thing I've ever seen was Iron Man, the original one with Robert Downey Jr.
Dude, okay. So, I'm glad you
I'm
told
not
me.
huge in movies. I need to catch up on things.
I'm glad you told me. Okay, so Endgame is 10 years worth of Marvel movies into one.
Yep.
And it's the big culmination. Okay.
I know that part.
Yeah. So at the very end of it, the big final battle, like all superhero movies have, there's when this big reveal happens and everyone shows up to fight that final battle. If that music was different, it wouldn't have had the same kind of emotion.
100%. But
the music that was scored for that scene in that moment, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Like, I watch it now after about 50 viewings and I still tear up. It's just that emotion that you get with that visual on top of the music. And cheerleading is the same thing. Like, you talk about the kids getting pumped and the coaches and their parents. When it's a good mix and it matches perfectly, which by the way is why we ask for videos of the routine.
100%.
So we can score it to what we see and to what you've created. So that we can find those moments and really impact the music and impact those moments with the music that we help produce. That's a great analogy.
You're 100% right. And I've had plenty of, like, if any of my clients are watching this, they've heard me use this expression plenty of times where I try to always take them on a roller coaster. And, if they've been excited, like when they're listening to music and they get excited and pumped up and then they laugh and then they get goosebumps and then they cry. That's kind of the roller coaster I want to take them on, depending on the section, depending especially on the theme. I always try to find places to put like kind of like goofy, funny humor into my mixes and stuff like that. So, it's the roller coaster of emotions, and that's 100% what we're kind of dictating. And I don't know if anyone has ever seen, there's people do this stuff online every now and then where they'll take like a movie trailer and be like, it's like a comedy. Like, it might be like, I don't know, Billy Madison. And they're like, Billy Madison turned into a horror movie trailer. And they just change all the music. They change like the voice and stuff like that. Or they'll do the same thing where it's like they turn this horror film into a comedy. And they use quirky music in the trailer and everything like that. It completely changes the dynamic of that visual to how you feel, how it conveys, how you interpret it. And one thing too, like, just music dictates so much moods in general, like especially if you're doing some sort of athletic event, everybody turns to music when it's going to the gym, when it's going to any other sport. So, if that's there to get you to a certain level of focus, confidence, things like that, it's important. It's an important piece.
It is. It's so funny because I had to do that for an exercise in film school. We took Edward Scissorhands and had to make it different genres.
That's a funny one.
Yeah.
To try to do.
Yeah. So we had that was actually an exercise I had to do in my editing class at film school.
And if any kids are watching these days, Edward Scissorhands and Billy Madison, those were movies when we were younger. So you guys may have not watched those, but they were big at the time.
Yep. Johnny Depp, Tim Burton.
Yep. Good stuff.
Okay. So we've talked about the importance of a good mix and the types of mixes. Let's talk about producers. So there's a good handful of producers out there. There's less now because of the resources available to them. Some don't have the resources of producing a fully original mix.
Yeah.
So what, or even semi-original. So what are your tips on, or so what are your tips for coaches who need to find a cheer producer, present company excluded? So like what should they look for when choosing a producer?
Oh, there's probably a lot. I'll try to narrow it down as much as possible, but I think, and this could probably be conveyed across any service. Like if you're looking for any type of service, let it be in the cheer industry or somewhere else, I think these probably translate the same. But I think the first thing is a first impression. If you reach out to a producer and they're quick to respond, the lines of communication are open, they're friendly, and everything like that. That's a huge positive compared to just quick responses, maybe taking a week to get back. And to be totally fair, every now and then, like maybe an email might get lost. So, um, even the best have things that fall through the cracks. So that's just one thing. Definitely, like off the bat, if they seem into it, they seem interested to try to earn your business. That's a big thing. Another thing too, honestly, I think this is something that sometimes gets forgotten is when you're trying to search for a music producer, everyone has a different sound and style. Like, look for one that fits your style, and don't expect you to go to one producer with a certain style and look for them to create a style of a different producer. So, if you want a mix that sounds like Senior Elite, go to the producer that makes Senior Elite. If you want something that sounds like everything on my SoundCloud, come to me. So that's going to be one of the big step, because then you're going to have kind of like a realistic understanding of what your sound is going to be this year, instead of being like, hey, we want it to sound like this mix. It's like, well, different artists, different styles, different writers, different resources. So that's a huge thing. I have some notes I'm trying to look at as well as far as that question goes. No, but another thing too, if you're working with a producer and each and every year they continuously give you reasons to leave, maybe you should look for another option. So the producers that want to continue to earn your business will continue to do things each and every season to do that. And they're invested into your program, they're invested into your teams. I guess that's another thing too to look into. This is just a personal thing. Every other producer, they have their own systems, their own lives, things like that. Not saying it's a right or wrong thing, but when you get a mix with Twisted Cutz, so we ask for all like different information at the beginning of the season, like Instagram handles, Twitter handles, competitions you go to, because we want to follow your journey all season long. We want to support you all season long. And if any client who's watching it of mine, they understand that, I probably bug the heck out of them on social media because I tag them 30 times a competition a weekend. Like, great job, way to hit at NCA. But that's another thing too. Like, if you can see that your producer is trying to provide you more than just a mix, trying to provide you a good experience, because that's part of the whole process. Like, anyone can kind of put together a mix. Can you make it so that there's no stress on the client? They're not wondering when they're going to get their mix. They're not going to wonder when they're going to get their edit. They're confident. They understand that they can just call you. Like, all those attributes are things you want to look into. But to narrow it down, make sure that the producer style fits yours, and you feel welcomed whenever you talk to them, I guess.
For sure. I think style is first and foremost. And I would even take it a step further and say that, as a business owner and a gym owner, or even a high school and middle school coach, like, you have, or you should have, core values for your program. And we go over that really in depth in Cheer Coaching Academy. But find a music producer or any vendor that matches your core values. And I don't necessarily mean your personal values, because you can't tell somebody's personal values over a phone call.
Yeah.
But if one of your core values is you want to be a good communicator to your athletes and parents and your coaches, if they don't communicate to you the way that you would like them to, that's a strike. So,
100%.
you want to have, you want to work. So you want a working relationship with someone who had the same core values as you in your business.
I completely agree. And one thing too, even beyond just like the communication stuff like that, like, maybe there's just a recommendation for anybody in business, but make sure that you're not necessarily being a horrible person online or like have anything controversial and stuff like that
Hmm.
that might turn your clients off and everything. But no, you're right. I think, you know, for coaches, when they're selecting vendors, they always want to keep in mind that if a vendor doesn't deliver on their promise, the biggest people that are being affected are the kids. And, you want to avoid that at all costs. So, definitely look for signs where it's like, okay, this person seems reliable, or everyone I've talked to says, yes, go with them. Or everyone I talked to says, be careful
Right.
with that one. Um, but yeah, no, make sure that your sound is where their style is. Make sure that the price points are be able to work with your program. And just make sure again that you're working with someone who seems like and conveys that they want to be invested in your program, not just here's a mix, talk to you next year.
Yeah.
Like, which I know I've heard plenty of clients say that. It's like, yeah, we get our email with our mix and then we don't hear from them. And there's no notes, there's no like anything else. And then like, if I don't know, me personally, like if I expect someone to come back to me, if I'm just like, hey, here you go, just toss it out to you, like I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't do it personally. So
Yeah.
if I wouldn't do it, like if I wouldn't come back, then it's a policy that I would not be doing, if that makes sense at all.
100%. Yeah. You mentioned budget. That seems simple, but it has to fit in your budget. If you don't have the money to buy a big time mix, a fully original mix, and you can only afford a pre-made, that's fine. But don't overcharge your parents either.
Yeah, and there's plenty of options, like even within Twisted Cutz. Not only is there a bunch of producers with different sounds and stuff like that, within Twisted Cutz alone, you have 5 different options,
Hmm.
from the top, like fully crazy customized full originals, the Twister package, down to steps to what we call the spinner package, which is much budget friendlier, all the way down to pre-mades, which you can also customize, which is even cheaper. So, we try our best, and I would recommend any production company, if they can, to look into giving the clients as many options as possible. Um, because it just helps them. It's simple as that. When they have more options, when they have more budget flexibility, it's going to bode well for your company and for your clients.
I think it's perfect. Real quick before we let you go, because I know it's getting music season and you have a lot of stuff on the. Because dude, you're booked. Like most of your months are already fully booked, aren't they?
Yeah, we've just kind of announced that basically, I think the next available time slot is close to either the end of December or early January. So all of 2023, which I'm beyond thankful for and blessed and honored that people, are that interested in getting a Twisted Cutz mix. But um, yeah, it's going to be a crazy 2023 season for sure. Not going to be much sleep. There's going to be a, big mugs of coffee. By the way, I have cats and I love my cats. So I spoil them like that mug says. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's gonna be a ton of work. It's been a ton of work already. Um, but I'm excited to hit the ground running. But for sure, once I get off this call, it's back at it.
It's back at it. So before we let you go, what can coaches do? Tell us real quick. What can coaches do to prepare to receive their music? So once they have their choreography, what do they need to do to give you the material so you can produce the best mix possible?
Number one is timeliness. So the way it works for a lot of music producers is we have a schedule. I'm trying to get in the camera, and there's only a certain amount of time slots per week that we have the amount of time per mix. And it's jam packed from July all the way down to December. So getting the information to us on time that we agreed upon, the scheduled submission date, that is probably the most important, because once you're late, and I understand, we totally understand things happen. Choreography gets shifted, things and that. So we work with clients as best as possible. If there's ever a delay, let us know right away. But timeliness is the best, because once you get rescheduled, you're either going to the next available date, which is months down the line, or you're getting squeezed in, and we might have to sacrifice some time spent on that mix. So the number one thing is timeliness. The next thing is making sure your count sheets and videos are clear and accurate. Um, because if we create a mix around a structure that is incorrect, changing it becomes difficult, and also could be a costly thing for the client as well. So making sure everything's on time, making sure it's clear and accurate, and then communication, obviously huge, letting us know any like specific details. But probably the last thing that is going to make life easier for both the client and producer is following the producer's procedures. So, for example, with Twisted Cutz, we just unveiled our new submission and delivery system called the Panel 9 Cloud, where we have digital 8-count sheets that you fill out in there. You have a space to upload your video and download everything. We ask our clients to make sure that you're doing everything within that cloud. So if you're sending us 8-count sheets from another production company, which isn't set up the way we like to, or videos to another count track where we don't know the tempo, or counting out your video and not using a count track, things like that, those take away time. Like any time that you stray away from the procedure, all those procedures are in place so that we have the proper resources and time to make the best product possible for you guys, so that we understand where you're coming from
Keep going.
and things like that. So once you stray away from those procedures, the only thing that can possibly happen is it hurts the product for your team. And yeah, that's basically it. So timeliness, clear and accurate information, and making sure that you're following the policies and procedures of whichever producer you're working with.
So we didn't plan that. Like I didn't tell him what to say on that question, but I will say that everything he just said is included in a lesson with Cheer Coaching Academy. I have a whole section on music, and everything you just said is in a few of those lessons.
That's awesome. Great minds think alike.
Absolutely. But because it's important that things are sent in the right way, and right way is the wrong term there, because there's no right or wrong way. The preferred way of each producer. Everybody has their own style, like we mentioned. Correct. And every producer has their own way of doing things, and it's important that the producer communicates that with the coach. But it's also important it's also important that the coach understands that and follows those procedures.
100%. Yeah. And a lot of times, like the procedures I have now, they didn't form overnight. It was years and years and years of understanding, trial and error, and figuring out what works best, not only from the business side of things, but what procedures and policies can I put in place that give me the best chance to deliver an incredible product and an incredible experience for the clients. And like one example this year is we created a new submission date it's called our team information date, team information submission date. Before, it was you submit kind of everything at one time, your routine, kind of like information about your team. But no, we wanted to bump that up so that we can spend as much time as possible creating content for your theme, for your identity, for all your requests. If you need a chant in your team and stuff like that. So yeah, like that's new because I felt that that's going to enhance the product overall. So if teams can get us that information in time, it's only going to help create an amazing mix. If it's not in time, if you drag your feet, if you don't respond to emails, again, it's only just going to water down what we can do from a creative standpoint and a time standpoint for your product.
Absolutely. Well, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on right now.
We all do, man. It's that time of year for everybody in the industry, you included, So, but
Absolutely.
no, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me a little bit. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward, like I said in the beginning, looking forward to seeing everything that the Cheer Coaching Academy puts out, and just excited for the 2023 season.
Absolutely. We've I can go ahead and I guess say this, and if not, we can edit out. But anybody that is a client of Alex and Twisted Cutz, he's going to send out an email with this video link and a discount code for Cheer Coaching Academy. So we've entered in a partnership, and you will get a discount if you choose to enroll you and your staff into Cheer Coaching Academy. So I can't thank you enough for doing that and helping get our message out there to everybody. Our biggest thing is we just want to serve coaches, and I do on this end, you do with music. Both of our businesses want to do that.
Yep.
And we just want to make this industry better for everybody. And, it's the more people that we can get on board, hopefully it helps.
100%, man. And I think we're going to discuss possibly doing some sort of discount on our end too.
Yeah.
With going through Cheer Coaching Academy at Twisted Cutz as well. So, but you're just a word of advice to anybody watching this. You're gonna have to hit us up in March to make sure that you get in on the schedule and stuff like that. Just a little crazy things fill up real quick, but no, yeah, man, it should be a good time moving forward. And for sure, the main goal is to just better the industry, make coaches, athletes, parents, gym owners as happy as possible, and go from there.
100%. So where can they find you on social?
So pretty much at Twisted Cutz is almost all my social media handles. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We have a YouTube and a SoundCloud page. We're going to be on Spotify soon to listen to samples and stuff like that. And then if you're looking to contact us, you can either visit our website, www.twistedcutz.com, or email us at info@twistedcutz.com. And yeah, we're kind of trying to be anywhere your eyes can go, you can find us. So hopefully that guides everyone in the right direction.
Well, guys, go follow, go like, go subscribe, all of Alex's channels. And while you're at it, Cheer Coaching Academy across the board as well. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Go like, follow, subscribe for all the content that we can give you. We're here to serve you, and we're here to provide you with the knowledge and the confidence that can help you develop your cheerleaders on and off the mat and provide you as much information as possible to do that. So as I always say in my YouTube videos, remember, legacy outlasts applause. So go impact someone's life today.